Hello and welcome to the live stream of Mad About Sports. It's a very special stream, as you've already seen in the title. We're going to be talking about the Premier League, and I have with us a very special guest. It's Ankit from Almighty Blues FC. You all have already seen him on the YouTube circuits. He's a Chelsea fan, he's a football fan, ardent cricket fan as well. But today we're going to be talking about football and Premier League in particular. I'd like to welcome Ankit Bhaiya. How are you doing? I hope you're very
Great.
good. And Chelsea had a win today, so I'm pretty sure you're pretty ecstatic today.
It's probably the right time to get me on because I'm not as just the entire season was like, oh my god, me and my rants. People are like, like get over it now. But yeah, it's great to be here. Obviously, following Mad Boss Sports for a while now. Been speaking to you as well. So obviously, Premier League football, the season is up and running. Hopefully, very soon, and great to be talking that for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, it's been a tough season, right, for a Chelsea fan for sure. But then it's a new, fresh start. If you look at that perspective, young lads are in, and to add to that, we have to talk about some big lads as well. Big win to start off with. We've got hi Manish. Hi Manish. Hope you're doing good. Yeah, but let's start off by talking about it. I mean, I just want to know how excited are you for this season, because this is a different season. Lots of transfers. We've seen the club making some big inroads in terms of getting some players in. Chelsea offloaded quite a lot of players to Saudi for sure. I'd like to know your opinion on that later on in the stream. But before that, what are your opinion? Just getting into the season with 20 days away from the first game.
See, generally, as in again, not focusing on Chelsea, but if I'm talking about general Premier League, right? As in, we all know year by year, every year, the Premier League gets stronger. I know the other leagues are not happy about it, and we know as a matter of fact, and of course, Saudi somewhere down the line is helping the other leagues, and we'll be discussing that. But coming to the Premier League, see, as in right now, we are in the transfer window. Transfer window, and as football fans, we all know in terms of European football, transfer window keeps us awake when the football is not on, and we are. There are times when we are almost more interested in the transfer market, and the reason being that at the end of the day, these guys play for the clubs. And if
Yeah,
you see this time, as in some of the biggest transfers, of course, the Declan Rice to Arsenal, for example,
yeah,
Nkunku to Chelsea, Soboslai
yeah,
to Liverpool, of course, Guardiola to Man City, which believe
yeah.
me, as in that'll probably change them to the next level. Not that they just won a treble. So I think apart from Manchester United making Onana, so these are some transfers which are telling me that it's going to go yet another level. Like we always think that, come on, as in it's got to be a cycle. Somewhere down the line, the other leagues now will pick up. The players will go there, but it's a money ball, like we know, right? And
Yeah,
and that's where I think Premier League, as just fans, it keeps us on the edge of the seat, and you
yeah,
always anticipate what new is there to see. And every team, like I name, has something new to offer, and that's the exciting bit of
absolutely.
it. And of course, coming to Chelsea, come on, you said it right. As in so many things we have changed over the last 17, 18 months. The
Yep.
entire club has changed, right? After we won the Champions League, the Club World Cup, and again we made a lot of mistakes, but now clearing those mistakes altogether, now it's literally FIFA mode. It can either go very good or it could go very bad. That's all.
Right.
So that's again in anticipation and wait, expect the unexpected, and that's something as
Absolutely. I mean,
fan I
you're
would
right in
like.
pointing that out. Premier League is making things exciting for fans, but I don't know your perspective. We've had the discussion prior as well as to Premier League going into the Super League kind of mode where everybody wants to play in the Premier League, and not just that Premier League is having the monopoly power at this point because they're attracting the big players. They've got the money in them. Just talk about Newcastle United. They're almost going to bid for Kvicha Kvaratskhelia from Napoli for 95 mil. And we're talking about Newcastle United, right? We're not talking about any other team. So where do you reckon there could be a line drawn? I know financial fair play is there, but as a fan, would you like to say, as a football fan, because you support AC Milan as well at the end of the day,
Yes.
would you like to see Premier League having the monopoly power? I mean, we've had this discussion numerous number of times, but still, ultimately, now you're seeing Saudi and Premier League trying to get in all the players.
See, again, it's difficult to put a lid on something because see, as in Premier League themselves, why did they come up? We all
Yeah,
remember like the late 90s or mid 90s, it was really Serie A, right? Serie A was very big, and one of the reasons why I started following Milan when I started following football, as a club fan, is because there was more Serie A content simply in our part of the world, right? So they had the money and they had all the sponsors, etc., and then they
mm,
got to the next level. Why? Because the football came to Asia as a World Cup, and then Premier
yeah,
League took like storm. Because for me, that is a cycle, but the difference being now not just the players, even the managers are getting attracted to the Premier League in the last
right.
say 10, 12 years, I would say. And
Mm,
even if, okay, there, I think there have been a lot of attempts by certain leagues to kind of say that okay, there should be a cap. Of course, FFP is there,
Yeah.
but even rules like homegrown quota in the UCL, you see in UCL there is actually there the homegrown quota,
Yeah.
but it doesn't matter. The
Yeah.
bottom line is not just the players, the managers, the year. So automatically, the
Yeah.
entire the best in football a year. So automatically, you have all the players coming here. Now again,
Right.
the difference maker could be someone out of the European leagues, and that is what Saudi is trying. Something which China briefly tried a few years
Yeah.
ago. We all remember. So I think this is a cycle now. The sustainability is key. Now the difference is when China tried versus when Saudi is trying is now we have the goats like Ronaldo, Messi, etc. in MLS and Saudi
Yeah.
League, especially respectively. So
Absolutely.
there, I could see that there is a potential of a sustenance longer than what it was, say, in the Chinese league or even the Russian league a few years ago.
Right.
So hopefully, again, for football's sake, I think somewhere down the line it'll balance out, and maybe it'll be like okay, maybe some other leagues will partner up with this, Saudi government, and maybe they'll have like a quota. Okay, you'll have like few players going from us to you on loan per season, but it'll eventually balance out. But honestly, it's very difficult at this point in time. And again, as a viewer, just as a fan, you
Yeah.
rather see basically where the best play and manage, and whether we like it or not, it is the Premier League at least for the next couple of years, if not more.
Yeah, that's right. Because ultimately, what viewers want is good football, and they want some action at the end of the week. Even in Champions League, you're seeing that you want that bit of competition. You have Real Madrid in Spain. You have Barcelona, who's not definitely doing well financially, but when you pick teams who can go out there and compete, you can pick a Bayern, you can pick a Madrid, you can pick a PSG there for an extent with money. But ultimately, it comes down to the Premier League teams absolutely bossing around in the transfer market. Now, that's why we'll talk about teams specifically to get in the season. We started with Chelsea. I thought there's no better person to talk about it than you yourself. I mean, new addition, new manager, Pochettino. I know whatever happened last season is put to a halt. There was rumors with Nagelsmann at the start, once before Lampard was trying to link up, but everything is now put to halt. You have a new era in it. What are your expectations on Pochettino? Because it's mixed feelings among Chelsea fans even now. A lot of fans still haven't really come to terms. Okay, Pochettino can do a job. If you look Pochettino's good run with Tottenham Hotspurs, he really made that team compete. They played a Champions League final. They finished top four almost every season. He gave chance to homegrown talent over there. Now, what are your experience? What do you like about Pochettino? And realistically, what do you actually think about him? If you don't think bad, if you think bad, you can be honest about it.
See, obviously, I'm going to say it as it is, and that's how I say it for people who watch my channel also know that. See, Pochettino, Chelsea fans, especially if you're looking at this, definitely take it with a pinch of salt. Definitely, there are a lot of positives. It cannot go worse than what it did last season. Let's be real. In
Yeah,
the history of Chelsea, from the time I've been watching, and that's like from around 2000.
yeah,
Trust me, in the last 20 plus years, it's easily the worst, if not the worst ever. Right? That's how bad it was. So he could only go one step further, but expectation of Chelsea, the DNA of Chelsea has become now in the last 25 years, especially that we are here to win. Now, Pochettino, one thing that you do not associate with him is winning stuff, right? And that's what
mm,
exactly what Chelsea was not. Now, the difference being that Todd Burley, Iqbali, and co, the entire consortium want to develop a project. The set of directors have come in, want to develop a project.
yeah,
And when you're talking about a project, we are talking about one, the style of football, second, developing players from Cobham, and of course at the same time trying and winning things, or at least competing year in year out with a better business plan in terms of finances. And that's because a lot of questions have been raised over the past couple of years, right, with FFP.
yeah,
Now, if you associate these things, if you're thinking of one manager, probably Pochettino. Like you said, in Spurs, he literally got no money, right? And Daniel Levy, the entire world knows how he is,
yeah,
right? So
yeah,
he managed that and got them to a Champions League final. And of course, even the Premier League, I know people can say they bottled the Premier League and stuff like that. Of course, Chelsea helped Leicester in that particular instance, in the battle of the Stamford Bridge. But at the
yeah,
same time, the reality is that he's one who's been there, done that. Now he's coming after a break. He's been to PSG. He's coming with some experience. Yes, he might not have handled the egos very well, but right now you do not have such egos in Chelsea. You have a lot of young players, and I think he's probably one of the better names that you can think of. My preference wasn't Pochettino, I'll be very honest, but
yeah,
again, he was there in the pecking order. It's not like he was out of the list. So for me,
yeah,
it's definitely a tick mark for me. Of course, Potter hasn't worked. Now Potter, everything almost tick mark there as well, but not managing a so-called club which is fighting for the top four, right? And that is
Yeah.
where Pochettino brings the difference versus say Potter. So hopefully
Yeah.
this time it'll work. Also the kind of football that is plays, right? Because if you see the way Chelsea play, a lot of emphasis in is on the fullbacks in the, under
Yeah.
Tuchel or beat even earlier, right?
Yeah.
And with Chilwell, Reece James, etc., being there with a central core that we are trying to recreate with all those sales that we've had.
Yeah.
Somewhere down the line, I think Pochettino probably is better suited to that kind of football with
Mm.
the aggressive pressing, with basically say a proper
Fullback
width with the
moving up the field.
fullbacks rather than
Yeah.
just wingers. So I think I would probably understand why Pochettino is coming, and the London factors to some extent can help. He understands the
Yeah.
culture,
Yeah.
being having been a manager of a London club, right? So
Yeah.
entire thing says now, okay, fine. He's speaking the right things. It's about winning. It's about basically
Yeah.
finding personalities which were missing last season. So I
Yeah.
think now I am much more comfortable. The expectations, realistically, it's get me top six or rather top five because I believe Champions League next time five teams can qualify. So top
Yeah.
five and give me a cup. I'll
Right.
take that happily. I'll bite your
You'll
hand
take
off.
any top at this point. That's good. I mean, so that's where, that's a very interesting thing which you mentioned. And that's why I want to ask you regarding this blueprint in terms of transfer market for Chelsea. There's a question as well. I'll take some couple of questions before that. What is your thoughts on Chelsea squad? We'll be talking about it right now as we're speaking. Selling many players, and Felix has gone on to say about his move to Barcelona. Keshav says hi, hi. Yeah, this also we'll talk about. But before that, how much do you think there's been a blueprint of Pochettino? Because Pochettino loves playing with a young squad. And you saw with the transfers, you saw with the players who were offloaded. It just looks like Pochettino wants a young core. Let it be a Mudryk, let it be a Noni Madueke, let it be even Enzo in the midfield. Kante leaving out, Kovac is making a move. It just looks like he wants to work with a young core of lads who can maybe set forth the future for the next 4 to 5 years and give them that confidence and work around them. And even if you look at the fullbacks, today Malo had a decent game. Humphreys today against Wrexham had a decent game. Giving chance to Chaloba today. I know it's a preseason game, but the kind of confidence he's given in these youngsters today, it just certainly looks like Pochettino is much more comfortable playing with players who are just setting their foot, and he can
Yeah,
work with them better. Because you saw what happened in PSG. He couldn't handle a lot of egos together in the same dressing room. It just
right.
went haywire for them there. You reckon that's a blueprint of what Pochettino loves to play with?
See, as in the question here, for instance, right? Poch can't be better than Tuchel, can he? Right? You know what? I love Tuchel. Don't get me wrong. And of course, in terms of tactics, I don't think he can get better than Tuchel, at least for the timing, as per what data we have.
Yeah,
Right? I agree with that comment. But at the same time, there's a question mark, and the question mark is about the way you play the football. There is basically, as in the Chelsea way. The what is the Chelsea? What used to be the Chelsea way? The Chelsea way, we were always known for the grit, the
yeah,
resilience, right? And basically come out of the situations. Basically, we were almost in a strange sense, if you were talking about blueprints, kind of even as a club as well as the way we played our football. A lot of it, I would not say it's the same, or I would not like to disrespect my own club here, but on the lines of a Real Madrid. How Real
yeah,
Madrid kind of have changed managers, the way they play the counter-attacking football all the time. That is how it was, and Tuchel kind of fitted that way. Now with the new regime, the idea is different. The players who are here, who have signed for Chelsea the last
yeah,
12 to 15 months, are not the players who would play that way. They are players who want to play football. And again, there are various ways of playing football. And Pochettino actually ticks that part, because for me, you mentioned about the game earlier today, right? So the game
mm,
against Wrexham. So I know,
yeah,
again, it's just one game. But the blueprint of Pochettino, the way he wants to play his football, leave
yeah,
PSG aside, is that he
right,
likes high aggressive pressing. He likes passing in between the lines. He
yeah,
likes even blocks in between the lines, as well as
yeah,
he likes his fullbacks to kind of bomb on, create those triangles, right?
yeah,
So in a very strange way, let me tell you, it is a combination of Pep Guardiola and the man who kind of is idol to Guardiola itself, as in the man who made Leeds change their football. We are talking
yeah,
about, right? As
yeah.
in, so you're the kind of football that leads the leads, not the leads of today, the leads of the side that
Bielsa.
came up from the championship, right?
Yeah,
So Leeds plus Man City, that is what
yeah,
we're talking about. That is what Pochettino is, and that is the kind of players we have. So for me, it's all about fitting those players. And again, like you mentioned, there are
yeah,
a lot of young players. The core is
yeah,
gone, and with young
yeah,
players, you're able to coach them better compared to
Yeah, as
a
you
set
see in
of
the stat
egos.
as well, it's 23.5 is the average age of the squad, which is a very good age for a young squad to develop under a new manager. And there's no egos as well. All these players want to set a foot in themselves. And that's why you have no more players who maybe find themselves big in the dressing room. All these lads are young. Let's talk about Mikhaila Mudrik or Noni Madueke, Sterling for that example. Even Nkunku coming from Leipzig. All these lads are pretty young. They're still setting a foot out there. And you think that is going to be a massive factor in this, isn't it?
Like again, like I mentioned in the example of Leeds, right? So what Marcelo Bielsa we did do with that Leeds side is there were a lot of young people. Even Chelsea, we forget mid 2000s. As in Ranieri was the manager, and then Jose Mourinho came in. The last year of Ranieri, if you remember, for people out there who are watching, 2003-4 we reached the semi-finals, and we should have probably done better in the Champions League, as well as the following year, obviously, we won the Premier League. So for me, that was a side which was really young. As in, a lot of personalities were there, but that was really young. And that is where you could see a change of the footballing philosophy of Chelsea in that era.
Right.
Similarly, in this era, I think it's better if you have those players who are young. And again, you could either count them on age, and I get that stat that you showed. I totally get that. But at the same time, there is a particular reason why we have let go players like Mason Mount, Kai Havertz, Kovacic, Kante of the likes, while they were
Yeah.
great for the time that they were there and they won us lots. But the fact is, like Man City also trying to do in a very strange way, you after you're winning a lot, it's better you change the cycle even if though they are young, because at some point it's difficult. Like you cannot every day produce what Sir Alex produced at Manchester United, right? You cannot have every
Yeah.
player coming out of the same kind of group, motivated at every juncture. I think it's
Yeah.
very difficult. So for me, it's a best timing for opportunity to come and coach these players, because there will be first no
Hmm.
ego, second, like you said, the age factor definitely helps.
Yeah.
The third is also the fact that they cannot just say that, okay, come on, as I've done so and so in Chelsea, they cannot
Yeah.
even think in their subconscious mind. So I think it kind of takes the boxes, but again, with a pinch of salt.
Yeah. Now, when we talk about because one of the biggest departures, that's where we have to talk on Mason Mount, isn't it? I just want to know your opinion on that because, see, he's a boyhood guy. He's seen it. He's born, bred, and brought up in Chelsea's academy. There's a lot of memories with him. He's assisted in the Champions League final. He had a phenomenal 2021-22 season as well. You can say the 22-23 season was pretty underwhelming for Mason Mount, the player, even certainly for the club in general. But how did you react to that? Because that was something which sent tremors across Chelsea fan base because they never expected Mason Mount to move to a Premier League rival as such. They expected Mason Mount to probably leave, but not to a Premier League rival at least. And the way he left, it certainly wasn't the most ideal way for him to leave at that point of stage. Everyone knew he'd leave at some stage, but not the most ideal way.
No, for sure. As in, again, I'm not going to sit here and say that, okay, fine, it happens, it's professional environment, you kind of change jobs, etc. Come on, let's be real. Football is about passion. Passion is about
Yeah,
football, right? That's why we're talking here. So for me, for someone who's been at the club since the age of 7,
yeah,
and for someone to say that it's his dream and it was his dream, it's not like not a Lukaku situation at all. It really was in this case, because the guy actually won the Champions League, assisted in the final, like you said. Not just that, he had some very, very important moments in the season before that when we kind of reached the top 4 under
yeah,
Lampard. He was a leader of the pack, absolutely. Like, and again, the moment that we changed the ownership, things changed, because the moment they appointed directors, their viewpoint was different than what the owners themselves were thinking. The owners' viewpoint was different than what the previous managers was thinking. So I think there was a lot of, say, misunderstandings, or maybe just not coming on the same page. They disagreed with things. Bottom line, like you said, why move to Manchester United? Why move so early? I know that we had to let go players because of FFP, because we're not in Champions League. We bought 40,000 players. We had to get rid of half the players. I understand that totally. But that was not Mason Mount's problem. Mason Mount could have waited, saying, like, no, let me wait. And by the way, there was an interest from Bayern Munich. Thomas Tuchel loved him. We all know
yeah,
that. Even in
yeah,
Havertz, and we're not getting to Havertz yet, but I believe, again, personally, I know it's a little personal, but the fact is, when Chelsea called me and surprised me by meeting Havertz, when I had that conversation, a lot of the pitch, of the things, the discussion that we had, it never gave me a vibe that a guy like Havertz also will leave Chelsea. Like, despite not
yeah.
being like a Mason Mount from Cobham, he literally felt blue. That is what Mason Mount is.
Mm,
Believe me or not, even 24 hours before he actually moved, I had a faint hope, because there have been cases in the past, and I've done certain videos on my channel to prove that there have been cases where things have changed when the manager
yeah,
has come talk face to face with the player. why didn't Mason Mount or even Chelsea wanted to wait till mid-July when Poch is actually physically here? But again,
Yeah,
it's happened now. I rather have people or players who want to play for a badge than
yeah,
not. And same goes for Manchester United or any other club. I'm sure their fans will say the absolutely same thing. But
yeah.
again, 1 year left in the contract, 60 odd million. You can on paper say win-win, but honestly speaking, it's probably a lose-lose if I'm being really honest.
Yeah, to be very honest. Yeah, you can say that as well. Rahul Magi said, what do you think about Nkunku must start as number 10 behind Nicholas Jackson? Nicholas Jackson has been pretty impressive this season so far, even preseason friendly. Or he looks like a player who has got a good future there. What do you make of Nkunku in this Chelsea squad? He had a decent game today, scored today as well against West Ham, but looks like someone who fits into that mold. He had a very good season with Leipzig, and he's always very, very. What do you say about him? He's got that explosiveness about Nkunku. He can
Yeah.
go up front, he can drift wide, he can play centrally. There is a complete package out there as a number 10. He can do that. He can also shift as a number 9 if need be. You reckon he can start as a number 10 this season? I mean,
I think Nkunku reminds me. I know people might be surprised by this statement, but I think the fact is like he is very similar to when Sterling was moving from Liverpool to Man City when he was changing the kind of football that he was playing.
yeah,
Sterling kind of started off as a winger, then he kind of became wide forward, and then became a
yeah,
false nine. I think Nkunku is one of those who could play everywhere, and again the change of pace that he has, that dribble ability that he has. I think those are things that you
yeah,
probably would have expected from a Sterling. I know
yeah,
things are debatable there, but I think there are certain things which he did very well when he was at that peak. Right now,
yeah,
the difference being here, Nkunku, if you actually speak to him and the interviews that is given till date, tells me that he wants to play as a striker. Now we know that in Leipzig he was not played as a co-striker unless there
yeah,
was injury, right?
yeah, correct.
And with that taken into consideration, he was still among the highest
Yeah,
scorers as well as highest assist getters.
yeah,
Plus, he was injured, and he
mm,
was what, two times player of the year almost, right? So
correct.
for him to come and say that I'm a striker, so I'm somewhere down the line guessing that okay, fine. As in maybe that was one of the deals that you had with Nkunku when he came in, and also add to the fact that we are keeping Broya, we have loaned out Dator Fofana, and we
Yeah,
have bought a Nicholas Jackson who's good, but again, I'm not going to say that he's like great, right? He's had what hardly 6 months of top level of football. He's done very well in
yeah,
that, and he
yeah,
looks
yeah,
very impressive. Even today, he was very impressive. His
yeah,
movements are quite natural. But for me, it is a clear indicator that there's a competition going to happen. But I agree with Rahul. Rahul, what he's saying in the comment, I personally feel that he's best suited as a second striker, right? He
yeah,
should be in that number 10 role, probably closer to the striker, fair enough. I'd rather have him play that. Even today's game, up until basically he kind of understood in the pass is coming, he was offside on a couple of
yeah,
occasions. So, like how Werner used to be. So, for
yeah,
me, people like Werner, Nkunku, Sterling, they cannot be pure number 9. And that's the
yeah.
mistake that we have made in the last couple of seasons with Havertz. We all know that.
Mm.
I rather have him play behind the striker. But again, if he gets me goals, I do not care, do I?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that's about it from Chelsea. Let's move on to another club who's made terrific inroads in this transfer market, and that's Liverpool. I mean, we have to talk about them. They did not go for Bellingham. They decided let's not spend a lot of money on one player. They went on to spend for Dominic Soboslai. They went to buy Alexis McAllister from Brighton. Massive, massive signings. And now look at their attack with Gakpo, with Soboslai. Now, if you add McAllister behind them as a midfielder, number 10, and maybe not sure about Thiago there in that team. How long is he going to be there? But still, if you look at the team now with also Hendo departing to Tifal, you can just say that the midfield looks pretty good. You know, it is young. It's a complete revamp from what they had. What do you make of Liverpool's squad? They certainly look they want to make certain inroads for the season because they came close to making top four last time around, though they had a very, very mediocre season. But that's Liverpool's squad for you. They've got the talent to turn it around very quickly. And if you get the right personnel under Klopp, they often tend to go on to do a good job.
I think Liverpool as a club, right, has always been not just Klopp, even before I remember, they are more like a field club. So they kind
Yeah,
of, when the vibes are great, they kind of go on with the momentum, and then they have a dip down and they have a longer dip down. But recently, because of Klopp factor and the fact that finally they have started spending, and I know a lot of times we say that Liverpool are not those big spenders. I think the difference is everyone is spending big in Premier League. We have spoken
yeah,
about it already in the stream. The difference
yeah,
being Liverpool pick right. I think 9 out of 10 times they do the right signing, and that's what has made the difference with Liverpool. And I think the maybe the mediocrity came about. One is obviously because of Klopp not changing the kind of football
yeah,
that he played over the last 6 7 years. Second
Yeah,
is, I think more importantly, and there's not an excuse. I'm not a Liverpool fan, but I have to say, as a Premier League fan, I genuinely believe I kind of feel sorry for the amount of injuries that Liverpool has had. Right, as in I know my
yeah,
club has had, but as well, but Liverpool has had quite a few injuries in the last season.
yeah,
So I think if you actually the picture that you put up, and along with the people who are coming back from injury,
yeah.
tells me again, people can disagree, fair enough, and I know I'm probably going to debate against the treble winning side, but I believe if you actually just think about the forward line,
Hmm.
and I think the depth is what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Liverpool has got the best forward line in the Premier League. I genuinely believe
absolutely.
that. Right? So Darwin Nunes, people say, come on, Darwin Nunes misses so many chances. As in the guy creates so much. As in I spoke about Werner. He reminds me so much of Timo Werner, right?
Hmm.
And that is something the Liverpool way. A Timo Werner could have worked better, in fact, right? And that is why
Absolutely.
Darwin Nunes in the Liverpool way, with the
Yeah,
the high press, the high line that they use. Generally
yeah,
speaking, that will work well. Gakpo, Jota, Salah, right?
yeah.
As in
Lose,
Luis
yes. Let's
Diaz,
not.
someone coming
Yeah,
back
let's
from
add him
injury is
there.
huge, right? So for me, that is it. Now the big hole was the midfield, and midfield is something that either they could have gone the Chelsea way, where just clear everything, start from scratch. That's what we are doing, right?
Yeah,
Liverpool have almost done that, and as things stand, I think Fabinho and as well as Thiago are still there, but apart
yeah.
from that, everyone is gone.
And they are looking to sign Lavia as well, right? At this point of stage,
Yeah,
they
so
want to
Lavia
sign him.
now, one aspect is Soboslai. They definitely overpaid for the guy. No two ways about it. Yes, there was the
Okay.
release clause, and
Yeah,
he was very good. Don't get me wrong; he's really
yeah,
good. Someone who's played with Nkunku. It's almost funny though that Nkunku came for 60 million, Soboslai for 70 million. But that's how the
yeah,
transfer market is. Now, why did they do that? Why? Because they saved half the money on Mac Allister. Mac
yeah,
Allister was like daylight robbery. It was like a no mall sale.
yeah,
The guy
yeah.
came for 40 million, and he is someone as a World Cup winner and who was
Oh,
arguably one of the
he
best
had a
players of Brighton.
phenomenal time with the Brighton
Correct?
squad.
Again, very young. I'm not going to say that very Premier League proven, but he's been there, done that, right? So for at least a year and a half. So you have him, you have Soboslai, and of course that DM. Now the moment they fix that DM position, if Fabinho is staying, fair enough. They have a Bajcetic as a backup, but let's be real. Fabinho is not the guy that he was 2 years ago.
Yeah,
Uh, that's why they let Henderson go as well. So for
yeah,
me, if they are able to get Lavia, is he a starter who kind of gets them to the next level compared to a Man City? Probably not.
yeah.
I would say that there, I believe there are also stories about Calvin Phillips from Man City. Ironically,
Mm-hmm.
people like them kind of make sense. I know they were linked with Dokore of
Yeah,
Crystal Palace,
Ducore.
but at
Yeah,
very high price. I don't think Liverpool is going to spend so much for them. Amrabat, I'm seeing Rahul commenting in the chat. I think
yeah,
he would actually suit them well, in my opinion, because that's exactly the kind of Fabinho profile that you want. But unfortunately, I think Ahmedabad might just go to Manchester United for the project that
yeah,
they have. So for me, apart from that one DM position, and you can say maybe a backup centre back, because
yeah,
Virgil van Dijk has not been the guy that he's been for the
yeah.
last few years after injury. So I would say they need these two. Otherwise, they
Mhm.
have done some brilliant signings. I agree with you.
Right. And that's where now the biggest question comes, right? For Liverpool, even when they were just making the transition, they had a phenomenal strike force, a decent midfield, but the defense used to always let them down. Now, Van Dijk, let's be all honest, he's coming towards that age where he tends to get injured a lot more often. He maybe cannot be at that intensity like what he was in 2019-20 or the season where they went on to play Champions League final. Konate is good thereabouts, but again, there's a fitness issue over him. Trent started playing as a midfielder. He started being an inverted a fullback more sorts, trying to come as a number eight. Even for England, he started as a number eight, which is not surprising. Which he also sort of prefers playing that position because of his defensive form, which he's shown in the last 1 year. You reckon that is going to be their biggest letdown because they've got a decent goalkeeper. Allison does a good job time and time again, but defense is one area with a DM which is not yet confirmed. So there is no shadow ahead of the defenders. So you have to say that one area which they could possibly struggle is their defense, and no depth being there present at this point.
No, I get where the comment is coming from Neeraj and what you're saying as well. But see again, the way that Klopp likes to play football is keeping that high line, pressing from the midfield, and that's what he likes, right? As in, you cannot have that without a high line. It's very difficult. You need to be a N'Golo Kante, and again, not everyone can be an N'Golo Kante. And I'm talking about a prime Kante. Something what Fernandinho for a season and a half showed with City, what Fabinho himself has showed in Liverpool, is very difficult to keep that going. So I can understand again, Trent defensively is not so solid. You rather have him, step into the midfield. I know that he's not going to be. People say that he's going to be a midfielder. No, he's not going to be a pure midfielder. The
Yeah,
reason being that the best aspect of Trent is crossing the ball, as in he's almost Beckham from defense.
yeah,
But the difference being the trajectory with which he curls the ball and he needs space in front of him, and that kind of comes in from a little deeper position. So I think it makes sense for him just to kind of play almost like a rightish sweeper. For people who
yeah,
know the sweeper role that used to be in the early 2000s, that is what I'm
yeah,
talking about. So I would say that without Trent, they don't get that what is good for them. I know they had to give something away, and that is where the midfielder comes in, the CDM. Again,
mm,
that CDM in a way is in himself a sweeper that we're talking about.
mm,
I
yeah,
know someone who just destroys stuff, who doesn't get, let the opposition get space. So for me, it'll come down to that. I am actually convinced with Konate. And even if you say get a Mark Gehi is well in defense, that they're also
yeah,
linked with the next Chelsea player that we are also linked
hmm,
with, ironically.
yeah,
I don't think it's going to elevate the defense. Like, who is there available in defense who's going to elevate the defense? I know Virgil
yeah,
van Dijk has his issues. So for me, go get a quality CDM, is what I would say, who kind
yeah,
of helps your defense, and let Trent play his game, focused in a midfield and attack, which has been the Liverpool way. I think
mm,
they need to focus on their strengths, unless Klopp is ready to change, and we all know it's like hitting a wall. He's not going to change the way
yeah,
that he plays, right? And some things work for Liverpool,
yeah.
so why change much?
Yeah. KV, we already did speak about Chelsea in depth for the first 20 minutes of our chat. So if you want to go back, you can go back and watch that because we got Ankit Bhaiya. So it wasn't fair other than to start off with Chelsea. But quickly, we move on because we spent a lot of time talking about two teams only. Let's talk about Arsenal now. One of the biggest signings in Declan Rice. Massive, massive signing. We have to be very honest with that. You can say not quite a poach, but it's still a big amount for West Ham, whatever they've received 125 mil. Just won the Conference League for them. A leader of men. He's got something about him. We have to be very honest about that because this guy is someone who comes in with a reputation of leading in the pack. And look at Arsenal as well in terms of expenditure. In the recent past, they really have spent a lot of money getting in Kai Havertz, getting in someone like Declan Rice there. That midfield looks super strong at this point. Let's be honest, what are your realistic expectations? And also, let's also add Urian Timber coming in from Ajax. Phenomenal right midfielder, right defender. He can play as a right back, he can go as a right centre back. He's done that. A very good ball playing right centre back. Someone who can possibly pair him with Ben White there on the right hand side as well. What do you reckon about that? Now, it's very interesting how Arsenal have moved. It's tough to really come back out of this season and to rejig the squad all of a sudden because it was disappointment ultimately, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And maybe that is one of the reasons why they have gone about the changes, because when you have such a big disappointment, it kind of carries over to the next season. And we've seen that with a lot of sides, Spurs being one. We spoke about Poch that season, we cannot forget. And then they kind of went downhill. So that is tend to happen in the Premier League. But again, I might be a little bit unpopular in the opinion I have about Arsenal. Yes, fantastic signings. I'm not going to lie. Definitely, Declan Rice walks into any other side, maybe apart from Man City. And ironically, Man City were the side who were also going for Declan Rice. So for me, 100% one of the top signings of this window. I think at par with what Enzo Fernandez signed Chelsea, signed with Chelsea last window. So I think these two guys, maybe along with Caicedo, I think right now, and Rodri, of course, are the top, number six if we're talking on
Yeah,
form in terms of how it's going in the Premier League this calendar year. I would say I rate that very high, but again, at the same time, they have lost Granit Xhaka and potentially going to lose Thomas Partey.
yeah,
Now, I could say that keep Thomas Partey, and yes, there are latest news saying that Arteta is open to keeping Thomas Partey, right? But why have you gone and signed Kai Havertz from Chelsea for 70 million? Now that tells me that Kai Havertz will start. And again, looking at the preseason games, I probably think he will. He will probably go 4-3-3 with Rice being the lone man in the lone pivot. Now, knowing Rice, how well he's developed his game, I think he's got more to his game than that.
yeah,
Yes, he's a brilliant leader. He does brilliantly in what he's asked to do. But that's the
yeah,
same thing Enzo Fernandez had an issue in January to May period for Chelsea. He did well, but he was restrictive in the amount of things that he could do because
hmm,
of us not having anyone else. Now the same problem Arsenal may have. So I still believe, bottom line being that yes, they've signed very well. Timber is again being a Dutch fan, someone who's really adaptable and someone who's really a team player will work good. But are they having too less names in the defensive part of the midfield? I think maybe they need one more player, and then
Yeah.
they might have to agree to the fact that they cannot play Odegaard and Havertz. They might have to play one or the other. Now that
Oh,
is
that's
the
interesting that you
biggest
mentioned
question.
that. That they both can't start either because Havertz likes going up the field. Even Odegaard does do that. So you need someone to drop back, and who's going to do that is going to be the biggest question here, isn't it?
See, that's what Rahul's comment. I totally agree, and that's what I'm coming to. Like the moment you drop them, fine. As in your midfield, rest of the midfielders are happy. Remember, Jorginho is there, of course,
Yeah,
coming from Chelsea again, but he's
yeah,
not that lone pivot guy again. So that's why I'm saying probably double pivot with Jorginho and Declan Rice makes more sense
mm,
with one of them playing. But the moment you do that, they're happy. But then what about the rest of the positions? Like Trossard is there, competing with Martinelli. Now these things
yeah,
on paper look like wow, what a squad. They
mm,
are playing the Champions League after 7 years. It might really help
mm,
them. Yes, they needed that. But it's easier said than done. Again, even Declan Rice, big potential, huge potential. But even if you compare, I know I don't want to compare directly, but Enzo Fernandez has at least been there in the World Cup, won that. Declan Rice has not seen that amount of success even at international
mm,
level. So for me, it is a work in progress still, but they will be very good maybe in two seasons time because they're still
yeah,
young in terms of winning things. So I think the idea is about keeping that squad together, keeping them
yeah.
happy. Can Arteta do that? Because it's a test for
Mm.
him as well.
Now I have a question for you. What will be a successful season for Arsenal? Because for a lot of people, some Arsenal fan base at least accept that coming to us, they were pretty happy with it because they not really anticipated the start of the season. Now they've come second in the Premier League and they came very close to winning it. Do you reckon at least one trophy in the kitty would satisfy them a lot? That would mean that they'll be pretty much happy. And the European success is not easy, especially how it's their first Champions League in 7 years. Even they couldn't do it in the Europa League as well when they had a good run. Premier League is not easy at all. But can they repeat, even come close, make it a top four once again? Will that make them a successful season?
I think minimum. I'm saying minimum expectation should be. If I was an Arsenal fan, I would have said the same thing. I believe you should minimum again compete, challenge for the Premier League. You should be there or thereabouts towards the end of the season, right? Competing for the Premier League. You may not win. That's a different case because
Yeah,
we all know Man City and even Manchester United will come to have really strengthened. Now but you need to bottom line. Now, Arteta, I'm not trying to here just to kind of tell that he's not good for nothing. He's very tactical manager. He knows his stuff. Worked in the Pep, but it's what fourth year if I'm not wrong for Arteta.
yeah,
He's
yeah,
won what one trophy, major trophy if you're
yeah.
talking.
One FA Cup, yeah,
And I might sound harsh, but if Emery was there for the same period, he probably would have won more. And I'm being very realistic here, right? So I think if you actually see the amount of money that they've spent, along with Arteta being here, there is a stability. Plus, last season they did very well. They were so close. The
yeah,
basic expectation should be to win at least one trophy. That's a minimum, along with challenging for the title. I think that is
mhm,
what you make that statement. The signings have been brilliant. Statement signings for sure. Again, if they're able to keep Thomas Partey, it might just balance out perfectly, right?
yeah.
But I would still say minimum trophy and the fight for top two is what is needed.
Absolutely, and that's going to be very interesting from Arsenal perspective. Let's go to Manchester United because, as you already took the name, massive. Already we spoke on Mason Mount going in there, but let's start off by talking about the major one, Andrew Onana, big keeper signing. We all expected him to make a move to Manchester United, considering Eric Ten Hag's relationship with him in Ajax and the good time. He's a good ball playing keeper who Eric Ten Hag desperately wanted, and that was one thing which David De Gea did not really possess. And also the big departure of David De Gea. Let's talk about that to start off with. Very surprised the way in which Manchester United dealt with that. We spoke on Mason Mount, but for Manchester United themselves, it was not all happiness as David De Gea has to.
Yeah.
David De Gea had to let a goodbye in a more sore fashion.
It's actually very similar. It's good that you remind me. And again, people in the chat, I know a couple of people, might be supporting Manchester United as well. So that'll be interesting. For me, what happened exactly between Mason Mount and Chelsea, the question earlier was just addressing that quickly, is because there was one thing which was told and then it was changed when the new directors came. It was very similar with David Day. I think they promised him certain things and then they changed their mind. It's like, no, you're not giving this deal, right? The rethinking. So for someone for a guy who spent 4 years at a club like Chelsea and then doing
Yeah,
that, I know he won the Champions League. To some extent, you can understand because the club has gone through a lot
yeah,
in the last 12 months. But for Manchester United, for doing that to David De Gea is was uncalled for. And I know that
yeah,
David De Gea caused them a lot of points last season. Almost, you can almost say that even the Europa
yeah,
League as well, right? But
Yeah.
we all have the short-term memory loss in football, right? Don't we? As sports fans,
Mm.
including myself, I'm pretty sure. He has literally kept them in top four for seasons put together. He has literally
Yeah.
won them a lot of points. So
Yeah.
I have always said it. David Dia is not only a Manchester United legend, I would say he's a Premier League legend. You just don't say by winning multiple Premier Leagues. He has won one, and I think he has done enough for me to say that he's that. So for someone like him, let go the way
Yeah.
that he goes. I was disappointed as a Premier League fan generally, but
Yeah.
they needed a change. It's just the way that they went about it wasn't right. Onana is exactly what ETH football needs. He has played with
Yeah.
ETH. He exactly knows what it is. Eric Ten Hag. That is why I got him. Yes, there was some off-field issues with Onana
Yeah.
previously, but I think he sorted that. He's just played the Champions League final. Brilliant. One of the best
Yeah.
distributors of the ball. Starts everything from there. Lisandro
Yeah.
Martinez also knows how he plays. I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Honestly speaking, very surprised. I don't know about chat. What do you guys think? Very surprised that there has not been competition for Onana by any other Premier League. Obviously,
True.
starting from my own club, but a couple of clubs, in fact, could do with better goalkeepers. And I'm very
Absolutely.
surprised. Definitely worth being the third most expensive goalkeeper ever. The timing is right. And I think
Absolutely.
in a strange way, I kind of already said it, but I genuinely believe that while Arsenal eventually might become better than what Manchester United is right now, but Manchester United this season, I personally feel, which might be unpopular, they might give a tougher fight to City than Arsenal.
Okay, that's very interesting that you mentioned, and I think that's where there was a comment at the start of the stream as to who was going to stop City. That's a question I'll ask you now. Which team do you really which do you really think can stop City? Because City is coming off a very big high. Treble is not a small feat at all, and they've been winning the Premier League on three times in a row. Three-peat has been completed, hunting for the fourth one. Possibly has got the squad to do it. Kovacic, of course, coming from Chelsea, you know Kovacic better than anybody. Gundogan is a massive departure because Gundogan kept City in the hunt throughout the season. In important moments, Gundogan did come. And why are we forgetting the 2022 season where he came in to score that brace to win City the Premier League? Or let it be even the semi-final of the Champions League against Madrid. Gundogan was that ace man, even the FA Cup final. That's a massive departure for City. It's not going to be easy. He was a club captain as well. But to add to that, Kovacic, now we're talking about City being linked with someone like Rafinha because there are reports, and it's obviously very clear that after Riyad Mahrez is leaving the club, that you needed someone to play as a right wing backup, and that's one thing which Pep likes. Pep likes a lot of backups, and if you look at a lot of City youngsters as well, if you look about Nico Lewis or something like a Palmer, Foden for that matter, they've all been transitioning well. It's going to be very evident that they're going to be getting a lot more chances this season than what they got last season because Pep is also looking at that kind of a change where he wants a lot of these youngsters to integrate into the squad, like he did with Barcelona in 2009 when after winning that six triple, he did integrate a lot of youngsters in 2010. How do you see City going in comparison with United? Do you reckon this is going to be not an easy season for City in comparison with the past three ones?
I think so. Yes, I think so. Yes. Again, it's like easier said than done. It's very difficult. Like I know, there's the treble. Winning back to back Premier League, back to back Premier League. It's even more difficult. I totally get that, 100%, and that's what makes the fourth one even more difficult. You cannot. And again, these are people, we're talking players, we're talking about between the age of 20 and 26 on average. They're all like, at that level where they need a pep with them, and that's where the pep factor comes in.
Yeah,
Now, for me, you can argue that City almost did the same thing last season because they let go Sterling and Gabriel Jesus and Zinchenko, and those
yeah,
three were very important elements in City's team previous season. But this time even more, like you mentioned, Gundogan. Then Kyle Walker is also,
massive.
arguably going to go to Bayern Munich. Then obviously Riyad Mahrez is going to Saudi now. Potentially Bernardo, but although it's too premature right now to talk about him. So you still have lost three like proper leaders, been there, done that kind of players now. But doing that back to back seasons is a big test. Now that's what would make Pep the difference maker in terms of writing history, and he's already done that, mind you. Sir Alex, right? The reason why he is like really respected and even to some extent Arsene Wenger is because during that era of late 90s to mid 2000s to late 2000s, it was these two managers who were like seeing a lot of changes at the club, but they still went on playing the Manchester United with the Arsenal way. And that is what City have done that for the last three seasons. Now, whether they can do yet again for with our other changes is a huge question mark. But realistically speaking, like I said, all the other teams have also strengthened. Plus, is their motivation the same what it was last season?
Yeah,
Probably not. And whether we like it or not, Pep will make it that way, but it cannot be possible humanly, right? So
Absolutely.
for me, it is a little bit closer than further away. Is what I would like to think. So
Yeah.
I would say that it's going to get difficult. But bottom line being that it is Pep, it is City. Um, if not, say a Bernardo Silva or a Mahrez being there, they still have Foden, they still have Julian Alvarez, who hardly
Yeah.
played last season. So
Yeah.
again, the squad is right there, and Rafinha you spoke about, again a Premier League proven
Yeah.
player. So I
Yeah.
think all in all, I can still see them not doing a treble, but I
Yeah.
can definitely see them winning two cup competitions.
Yeah, very interesting that you mentioned that. It is not ever easy, to win a Champions League, and itself was tough task. Being a City fan, I know that we came close in 2021 against your team, and that was a heartbreak. And I thought that really affected the next season as well. Come against Madrid, you really lost confidence, and to come back and to win the treble, I give it to Pep Guardiola for that. And hopefully next season for the Manchester derby, you might see a Haaland versus Hoyland. That's going to be the two strikers will be up against each other. That's going to be very interesting. And finally, before we end the stream, I just want to ask you, what are your realistic expectations out of teams like Newcastle, Brighton? Because Newcastle, on the other end, slowly making up all signings. Signed Harvey Barnes today. A lot of people are not making a lot of noises. And Kwicha Kvaratskhelia is on the radar once again. They've got a very strong squad, Newcastle. And Eddie Howe, you have to give credit to him. I mean, he took that squad to the Champions League position. Now, if you give him more
Yeah.
signings, he can possibly do something even more better.
Yeah, but it's very similar to City again, right? I remember when Mark Hughes was City manager and Roberto Mancini came in and got him to the next level. So it was almost that when Eddie Howe came in, right? As in, you can say that, but again, for an English manager to do that, it's absolutely brilliant. But I would say, see, Newcastle, it's been a long time since they've been in Champions League. Remember that cup loss was huge for them. I would say the cup loss against Manchester United. I know it
Yeah,
was just a Carabao Cup, but for me, maybe this is the season when they get to that level where they can also prove in other competitions. Last season was like, okay, fine, there was not so much pressure and they were doing it. Now all eyes are on them, they are making
yeah,
big signings like Tonali. Last season they didn't make the big signings. Isaac came in, I know, but
yeah,
he was not say proven
yeah.
consistently as like a
The Premier
Tonali,
League, yeah.
because he's
Yeah,
a
the big
Scudetto
big
winner.
league, yeah.
Champions League, the semi,
Yeah,
semi-final he played. Now, so for me, these are a testing kind of a period for
yeah,
Newcastle and Brighton, because they haven't been there playing Europe, playing Premier
yeah,
League. I know again we can say about Arsenal, but come on, Arsenal, there are still a lot of players. People like Jorginho won the Champions League. Here, you don't have so many such players. So for me, I would still say that Newcastle and Brighton, you have like jury's out. But yeah, they made some terrific signings. I would say so. Again, I would not be surprised if they again finish top six. But for me, top four, I find it difficult with Champions
yeah.
League. I know that Harvey Barnes will come in, but again, Saint Max. If you really ask me, yes, Harvey Barnes is more
Yeah, Saint
reliable.
Max is possibly leaving the club as well. As from what we hear the
Exactly.
reports, he's going to
So
Al
for
Ahly, I
me,
think.
if you're gonna ask me who's a better player, I actually go with Saint Max, right? But
Okay.
Harvey Barnes is great as well. Now he's more reliable. Now that tells me they are still buying for the Premier League and they're not buying for the Champions League. Now
Yeah.
if Kwicha Kvaratskhelia come, that's like okay, fine, I'll put my hand
Okay.
up. But
Yeah.
realistically, I don't see Napoli selling them Kwicha.
Yeah, there was also this is a very interesting question because Quisha is also linked with Manchester City today. Apparently, Quisha and Florian Wirtz are two players who were linked with Manchester City earlier today. Very interesting. Two players, two different profile altogether. Quisha, what do you think about him? I mean, you did mention. I want to ask you this question before we go to that. As an AC Milan fan, I know there's a Premier League discussion. Are you slightly upset that Ronaldo left Milan to go to
Oh,
Newcastle?
100%. 100%. And also it connects Chelsea as well, to be honest, because as you know, four of Chelsea players in the last couple of seasons are actually gone to AC Milan. So it's a kind of bittersweet situation, personally speaking. But Tonali, like again, the Mason Mount, almost a Mason Mount thing, right? Where you have someone who's really a fan of the club and then he
Yeah,
leaves the way that he does. Tonali was forced to go almost, right? Because he needed the money. Simple as
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Maldini was let go, so there was no other choice. But again, has it helped AC Milan in the long run? Probably yes. Time will tell whether they made the right signings, but at least they've got money, right?
yeah.
Now, on the other hand, Newcastle have everything basically as in with pressure to them,
I mean,
because
let's
for
talk about the
me,
midfield of Newcastle. We got Gimmerish and Tonali to play maybe a double pivot for the season, and that's a crazy good duo because you talk about Gimmerish, who's been extremely underrated in this Premier League season, and Tonali carries that reputation. Had a good Champions League run, helping them to reach the semi-final. How big a decisive factor is that going to be for Newcastle? Because we are on that similar lines now.
No, it's great. And Tonali is a very good passer as well as actually underrated in the kind of work rate that he does. When you're talking about like just the work rate element, I think he's a brilliant addition to that midfield which has Gumaresh in. But I would say like the third midfielder they still need. I know Jolinton works very hard. He's very good. He does a job for them. But I think a little bit more quality. Gordon again promising, but he's not a midfielder really. He's more like a right forward. I would say,
Yeah,
if you ask me. So that's why they are linked to, say, for example, Conor Gallagher, someone who's just having that extra thing of taking shots, because Tonali is not a shot taker, right? Really, he's more like a passer. He's someone who has work rate, kind of working of the ball, and Gumaresh is almost the same. So for me, you need a third kind of element. Again, they are very good, don't get me wrong, but are they better than, say, a Manchester United midfield or an Arsenal midfield or a Liverpool midfield
yeah,
or
yeah,
at least a Man City for sure midfield, right? So for me, that is only questionable. But if you're talking about Kvicha, the question that you asked me,
yeah.
Kvicha, with all due respect, I do not see him moving to a Man City or any club which has like a show shot left forward who's going to preferably start. Now, Kvicha moves
Right.
to Premier League right now. It's a plus for him, but let's be real. He would like to start if he goes there, right? So Man City getting linked to Ryan Cherky, which Chelsea is linked to, I understand more because Ryan Cherky can play off the right hand side more compared to the
Yeah,
left hand side. So
very young
that
as
makes more
well.
sense to me. So I don't see Kvicha moving. Even Newcastle, because Harvey Barnes has come now. Knowing Leicester, I don't think they just sell people easily, as in unless they get money or the player is like totally convinced to go there. So I'll be surprised if Newcastle pull off Kvicha or even Man City pull off Kvicha.
Absolutely. And I also think Napoli has, given him that kind of freedom, and also he feels at home in Napoli. Napoli would definitely want to have a season, and it's not going to be easy for them under a new manager with Osimhen and Kuicha. Maybe one more season, one more shot, and see how things go.
Yeah,
Maybe
they are
next
still
season.
Scudetto favorites, so I think it doesn't make any sense right now, and they are in the Champions League, so it's not like a desperate situation for him to move. I can
Yeah,
understand if a Chiesa was linked, for instance, which Newcastle has been linked. I can understand that
yeah,
because Juventus are not in the Champions League. But
absolutely.
again, do I see Newcastle signing Harvey Barnes not to start? I don't see that either. So
Yeah.
time will tell.
Absolutely. Finally, I mean, as we end this stream, what are your top four predictions for season? It's still very early days, and it's not easy to make top four predictions in Premier League. Even last season wasn't easy until possibly the last month. What are your realistic expectations? If you have to put, maybe you can give an order, or maybe you can give randomly. These four
Yeah,
teams
as
will
in
be
at
there.
least as in disclaimer that is as per whatever transfers which you think will happen as well as what has happened till now, and of course looking at the slight preseason matches, I think it's no brainer. Man City are still favorites for the season. I know that there are a lot of outgoings and comings compared to what they were in the winning season, but I would still give them that because of Pep factor. For me, like I said, Manchester United are actually going to be second right now as I see it. Even the names I think I can see in chat, and I agree. Amrabat probably is yours. Hoyland probably will be yours.
Yeah.
So I can see that Manchester United fans, you are there. Arsenal, they will do much better than the Champions League compared to what they've done in the past. With Havertz, Jorginho being there in the squad, I see that happening. But in the Premier League, I see them faltering a little bit, but still good enough for top three. So third is what I think. The fourth is very interesting. Going to be a big fight for me between Liverpool and Chelsea. Again, Chelsea
Okay.
is almost like expect the unexpected. I don't know what to expect
Yeah.
because even being a Chelsea fan, having
Yeah.
closely scouted these players that have come,
Hmm.
a lot of them are so unproven at the highest level. Pochettino
Yeah.
coming after a while. So a lot of question marks with no Champions League football that might help us.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
Liverpool being Liverpool and having been there, done that, I have to give them the edge right now as things stand because we have not yet made Caicedo signing. So I'm giving Liverpool fourth for now. I hate saying it, but got to be fair. Being an EPL fan,
Yeah.
top five is what I'm looking at. Yeah, Chelsea being there just about, but yeah,
Yeah.
Newcastle and Brighton to just miss out.
Absolutely. I mean, that's going to be tough on Newcastle, but it's going to be interesting how Newcastle goes about this season, because if they can come anywhere close to what they had in the last season, maybe get one trophy, if it's even a Carabao Cup once again, that's going to be massive. I mean, this squad has got something about them under Eddie Howe. They've got the drive. And that's about it from us. I mean, we've had a good 50 minutes, 55 minutes of good discussion. It was pleasure, Ankit Bhaiya, once again to have you on the stream to
Mine
discuss.
as well.
If you guys haven't already followed Ankit Bhaiya's channel, it's there on the description. Do check out Almighty Blues FC and also Almighty Sports, where he's going to be covering a lot of other sports. Cricket, if you're a cricket fan, do check that out. And if you're a Chelsea fan and a football fan, he does streams, and he's the most passionate streamer out there. Even he covers preseason friendlies, and you can get all the action. If you haven't already done a membership as well, do check out on the membership as well aspect. There's some exciting features available for you if you want to be a member. So all these people who are watching the stream, do check out Ankit Bhaya's channel. And once again, it was pleasure having you on the stream, Ankit Bhaya, to talk about this.
Same here, absolutely. And again, in the conversation, I just realized that we missed out talking about Spurs. But come on, let's be real. Harry Kane is moving to Bayern Munich. Looks like it, at least for the timing. So again, thanks for having me. Brilliant discussion, and see you soon.
See you. I see you. And guys, if you're new here, do not forget to share and subscribe to our channel as well. And do give it a follow on the Instagram page. And do check out our education tech courses with on football analytics and also cricket analytics. If you are a passionate analyst who wants to step footing on sports field, and this could be a setting stone for you. So do check that out with us on Mad About Sports. Have a good time, all of you. Thank you, and see you all once again very soon.